What if your kindness isn't saving you, it's destroying you? Machiavelli didn't just question kindness, he feared it. Everyone tells us to be kind. From childhood we're taught, kindness is strength. That if we're good to others, good will return to us. But Machiavelli saw through the illusion. To him, kindness was a crack in the armor, a silent surrender, a slow death dressed as virtue. He didn't hate kindness, he feared what it does to power. Because power and kindness don't breathe the same air. He who always tries to be good, Machiavelli warned, will come to ruin among the many who are not good. Let that sink in. Imagine a ruler, kind, forgiving, generous. At first, they're loved, praised, worshipped, but slowly expectations grow. People start taking more and giving less. They confuse kindness for weakness. And then one betrayal, one misstep, and everything falls apart. Why? Because kindness doesn't come with fear. And without fear, respect fades, control slips. This is what Machiavelli understood better than anyone. That in the world of power, your goodness can be your gravestone. Now pause for a moment. Think about your own life. Have you ever given too much? Forgiven too quickly? Did they thank you? Or did they come back for more? This isn't just about kings and thrones. This is about us, our relationships, our silence, our boundaries. Machiavelli didn't write for monsters. He wrote for survivors. And in his world, survival had rules. Don't be cruel without cause. But never, ever be weak in the name of kindness. Because once people see that your heart can be swayed, they'll stop seeing your strength and start searching for your cracks. That's when the fall begins. Not with war, not with rebellion, but with a soft smile. That gets taken for granted. They say love is powerful. Machiavelli disagreed. He believed love makes you weak, but fear keeps you alive. Machiavelli looked at the world without filters. No fairy tales, no illusions, only the cold mechanics of human behavior. And what he saw was that those who seek to be loved are the first to be betrayed. Because love, he said, is conditional. It fades, it shifts, it bends under pressure. But fear stays. It is better to be feared than loved, he wrote, if you cannot be both. Let's break that down. A leader who is loved must constantly please, maintain smiles, appease every disappointment. They become a slave to the emotions of others. But one who is feared commands without explaining, is obeyed without needing affection, and most importantly, he survives. Now think, have you ever been afraid to upset someone you liked? Held back truth to protect a bond? How many times did that kindness cost you peace? Machiavelli believed that those who lead with love eventually face rebellion, because love invites closeness, and closeness brings judgment. But fear creates space, a distance that protects. He wasn't asking you to become cruel. He was asking you to understand nature. People will follow those they cannot cross, and abandon those they believe will forgive. That's the core of power, not popularity, not affection, but control. The kind of control that doesn't beg for loyalty. It commands it. Now ask yourself, in your world, do people obey you out of love, or do they respect your limits because of fear? Would you rather be liked or unshakable? Machiavelli knew that love fades in times of crisis. But fear protects you when the knives come out, because when the storm hits, no one protects the gentle king. They follow the one they fear losing. But if fear is so powerful, how far should one go to create it? Should a leader use cruelty, or just the illusion of it? That's where Machiavelli's philosophy gets darker. In The Prince, Machiavelli didn't glorify violence. He studied it. Like a surgeon studies the blade, not for harm, but for precision. He argued, if cruelty is necessary, it must be swift and unforgettable, not spread over time, not repeated. One clean cut, and then peace. Injuries, he It wrote, must be inflicted all at once, benefits little by little. Why? Because drawn-out pain creates hatred. But a single brutal act, followed by stability, makes people forget the wound and remember the order. This was Machiavelli's genius. He understood that power isn't about kindness or cruelty. It's about timing. So if a leader must strike, he must strike only once, but deep enough that he never has to strike again. Now ask yourself, have you been avoiding a necessary cut? Delaying conflict to seem good, because sometimes a quick hurt is better than a slow death. But what happens when cruelty is used, not for survival, but for pleasure? That's where even Machiavelli draws the line. Machiavelli warned of something darker than cruelty, the addiction to it. He believed power was a tool, not a drug. It should be used with discipline, not desire. That's when power turns poison. Machiavelli feared this most, not weak rulers, but strong ones who lost their purpose. Because cruelty without strategy becomes chaos, and fear without fairness becomes rebellion. The people stop seeing a leader and start seeing a tyrant, and when that happens, even fear won't save you, because fear, once corrupted, turns to hatred. And hatred, it never forgets. So if kindness can destroy you and cruelty can corrupt you, what's the balance? How do you lead and survive? Machiavelli had an answer, not in action, but in image. Machiavelli didn't just teach rulers how to lead, he taught them how to act. To survive, he said, you don't always need to be powerful. You only need to look like you are. Because in politics, in business, even in personal life, perception is reality. Everyone sees what you appear to be, Machiavelli wrote. Few experience what you really are. It wasn't deception for the sake of lies. It was protection, a strategy to shape how the world reacts to you. He believed a ruler should appear merciful, loyal, generous, even religious. But behind the curtain, be calculating, ruthless if necessary, because people don't follow truth. They follow confidence. They follow image. They follow the story you tell. And if your image breaks, if they see your fear, your doubts, your hesitation, they will turn. So Machiavelli taught leaders to wear a mask, not to be fake, but to be safe. In his eyes, a ruler without a mask is naked in a world full of knives. But here's the twist. If you wear the mask too long, you may forget who you really are. You become not the actor, but the role. So then the question becomes, what is the cost of becoming what others expect? Can power be held without losing yourself? Machiavelli hinted at the answer, but it's one few are ready to face. The greatest leaders don't just conquer kingdoms, they conquer themselves. Machiavelli knew the cost of power. It doesn't just demand loyalty, it demands sacrifice. If you want true power, you must give up something precious, peace. Because peace and power cannot coexist for long. One requires compromise, trust, and vulnerability. The other, control, fear, and domination. To hold power, you must keep the world on edge, always ready for conflict, always expecting the worst. Because when peace settles in, people get complacent. They stop fearing you, they stop respecting you, and that's when your throne begins to crumble. It is better to be feared than loved, Machiavelli said. Not because he hated love, but because fear keeps your power alive. Leaders who seek peace, true peace, soon find themselves alone at the top, without the support of those who once loved them. They didn't ask for peace. They asked for security, for survival, for their place in history. And history remembers those who survive, not those who are remembered for being kind. But the cost. But is there a price too high for power? Can a ruler win at everything and still lose themselves? Machiavelli has one last lesson to share, but it's a bitter pill. Machiavelli didn't just teach rulers how to dominate the moment, he taught them how to live forever, not through love, not through kindness, But through fear and control, he believed that true power leaves a legacy, an immortal one, a ruler's name etched into the minds of history. But the price? It's more than you can imagine. To leave a mark that time can't erase, you must walk. The path few are willing to tread, a path of isolation, betrayal, and constant vigilance. Machiavelli's greatest fear wasn't that a ruler might fail. It was that a ruler might be forgotten, that their efforts would fade away like dust in the wind. So he gave them a trade-off. Sacrifice peace, sacrifice love, sacrifice comfort. But in return, you gain immortality. Your actions, your decisions, your legacy. These things last long after you're gone. They define history, not the individual. But does immortality come with its own curse? Is there a point where even the greatest ruler falls into oblivion? Machiavelli's lessons were clear. Power is a weapon you can wield. But it can also turn on you. In the beginning, power is a tool. You use it to rise, to dominate, to command. But eventually, power doesn't just serve you. It consumes you. No matter how skilled you are, how much control you maintain, the fear of losing power eventually becomes your prison. And that prison, it's built by the very walls you've constructed. You become a slave to your own decisions, bound by the chains of your actions. Every move, every gesture, calculated for fear of what comes next. Machiavelli saw this inevitable truth. The rulers who rise too high often fall the hardest, not because they're overthrown, but because they no longer know who they are without the throne. They live in constant fear of betrayal, even by those closest to them. And in the end, it's their own obsession with power that destroys them. But is there an escape from this trap? Can a ruler maintain power without losing themselves? Machiavelli's last advice might surprise you. The greatest leaders aren't those who fight for power. They're the ones who choose when to stop fighting. Machiavelli's teachings brought rulers to a crossroads. He showed them how to climb to the peak of power, but he also showed them the choice that comes with it. It's not about being invincible. It's about knowing when to stop. The hardest decision for any leader isn't whether to conquer, it's whether to surrender, to step back, to let go, and to choose peace over power. Because power doesn't end, it consumes. And sometimes the wisest choice is to surrender before it takes everything. Machiavelli believed that true mastery of power isn't in conquering others. It's in conquering yourself. It's in knowing your limits. And when the time is right, letting go before power becomes your prison. A ruler who can walk away from power without regret or fear. That's the ultimate victory. But if surrender is the answer, what happens when the world doesn't let you? Is true peace even possible? At the end of the game, the ruler asks himself one question: was it worth the price? Machiavelli knew that power's endgame isn't marked by victory. It's marked by the legacy you leave behind. And every ruler must answer this question: was it worth it? Because the choices made along the way shape everything. The betrayals, the sacrifices, the moments when you chose survival over compassion. At the peak of power, the ruler is alone, surrounded by those they've conquered or controlled, but still utterly isolated. The question of whether it was all worth it hangs in the air. The ground that once glimmered now feels heavy. The people who once adored you now whisper behind your back. Machiavelli's philosophy wasn't just about conquering others. It was about mastering yourself and living with the cost of that power. No one can answer the question for you. Only the ruler can decide if they truly gained what they sought, or if they lost everything they didn't know they needed. And when the game is over, what remains, the crown or the emptiness? Now ask yourself, was it worth it? Do you think power's cost is too high? Let me know in the comments below. And if you've enjoyed this journey through Machiavelli's dark lessons, subscribe for more insights into the mind of the greatest philosophers, because power, like knowledge, is something we can all learn to master.